My voice is in phase. My voice is out of phase.
Welcome to the Escheology Podcast. Many thanks to Resonix Sound Solutions for making this podcast a reality. There's a link in the show notes, but you can find out more about Resonix sound treatments along with tons of other info, resources, and products at resonixsoundsolutions.com. Here are Mr. Peter Steinbacher and Michael Myers. Hello, Peter. How are you?
Hello. I'm pretty well. Can't complain.
Tired, I'm sure, like everybody.
Yeah, 4 or 5 hours sleep every day is not fun.
It catches up with you.
I've seen Peter more this year than I think some of the competitors and judges in the States. We saw you at SVR, and then saw you again in LA during the WCA finals, and then you were also in Birmingham for the U.S. finals, as they'd like to call it, World Finals, which I know makes you guys really happy. But
we're used to it.
You know, the U.S. World is the same thing.
The world.
You see, I go to more main events than you. Where were you?
I know, right? Oh, that was disappointing. I wasn't there. I know. I'm falling behind. I'm starting to turn into a couple of people that like what you have over there. That I was at more UK events, I think, than some of the people in the UK, but there for a bit. But anyways, not too long ago, we released an interview that we did like 6 years ago, back when I think you had around 1,000 YouTube followers, which is obviously
crazy.
Yeah, I know, right? And I know most of your background is the same now as it was then. So as far as what got you into car audio, obviously, did you have a shop full time back then, or what were you
Back then?
Yeah.
No. So till COVID, I was still doing sound engineering.
Okay.
And I was doing installation actually back at home. It wasn't a secret to anybody. Everybody knew that I was installing from home. Everybody has to start somewhere. We know what the game is like.
Yep.
And then, when COVID kicked in, that just ended the live sound engineering, because for 2 years there were no events. So I was probably one of the lucky ones, because car audio just tipped over naturally, and it became very obvious that that's exactly what was meant to happen, that I wanted to achieve anyway. And 221, things went serious. I got a shop. Then I found an amazing employee as well, Eddie. Many people know him. And since then, we just do our thing.
I've had this discussion with other people who do a lot of YouTube as well, because I think people are under a certain impression of what YouTube fame and dollars are or are not. But I mean, is it still pretty much where your basis of, your work is the work that you're doing in the shop, and then you're able to, you kind of get content for the YouTube stuff along the way, or where's your focus mostly now as far as what you're doing, where you're spending your time? Is it more on the YouTube stuff? Is it more on the content stuff? Is more, obviously you've done a lot of travel this year as well. Is the shop still your primary focus, or what's the kind of where are you wanting to go with it?
Yes, things definitely change over time. Of course, when I went serious with YouTube, I just understood that social media is the way to go. Everybody is on YouTube, everybody's on Facebook, Instagram, and it's all free. So why wouldn't you use it if you want to reach out, if you want to show to people what you do? And if YouTube, it's a funny place. People think that, you're going to make beautiful living from YouTube, but it's never the case. I have over 350 plus videos on YouTube, which took, I don't have to explain to those who have created content before, shooting content, uploading it, editing it, uploading to YouTube. Oh, that it's a lot. It was many sleepless nights when Mrs. was already in bed. I was still up. taking sleeping time away from me while you have to do the work during the day. It's
Right.
pretty exhausting. And in the last 1 year, things have slowed down on YouTube for sure.
Yeah.
Because I just simply have no time for it. And it's sad. Many people have raised their voices that, Pete, it's not cool. But it's easy to say it from the other side when people just sit down and, oh, there's another video coming out from Pete. Let's just watch it. That's the easy part. But
everybody wants the content, but yeah,
it's very tricky. It's very tricky these days. I'm not able to share so much. Usually on YouTube, we just share finished products. We show to people what we've built. We talk about how we achieved it. We may share the feedback of the owner, or some people hate my demo videos. We record a bit of music playing from the car, which is clearly, I have to highlight it again, is just for inspiration. Some people judge cars based on what it sounds like from a recording. The other day, I'm not joking, somebody messaged me. I shared a little short video on Instagram and Facebook story. Somebody sent me a message that, it doesn't quite sound right. 200 to 600 hertz sounds out of phase. And the best part was that he was saying, yeah, you may have to find a new tuner to retune this system.
It sounds like my iPhone. I don't understand what's going on.
No, well, that person watches my videos regularly, and he was always trying to listen to those recordings with decent gear. So he might just try to have some sort of comparison from time to time. But even I know that depending on background noise, depending on listening level, the microphone records differently. And you can't control it. I don't have a reference level recording system. I just use a Sennheiser binaural microphone most of the times. Sometimes just the iPhone.
Yep.
And it was almost offending that, hey, you have to find another tuner. I'm like, what? Are you serious? And he did. And he broke it down in detail. No, I'm serious. I'm like, yeah.
That's hilarious.
The joys of internet.
Yeah. There's all kinds, that's for sure. I know you've also obviously gotten into doing, more of these trainings over, at least what I've seen over the past year or so. I know that's not just like the YouTube and everything else, it's not a easy thing to just jump into, because obviously there's a lot of prepare there. There's a lot in terms of feedback from the clients, getting the where, the environment to do it in, executing that. I mean, it's all a whole lot of work. So what got you wanting to do more of the, I guess, for lack of a better word, classroom style education?
I think it's not a surprising thing for anybody, realizing that tuning is the most difficult part of this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And through competition, I witnessed it over the last 10 years that there are so many amazing systems, well installed with great equipment, and probably 90% of the times, the final part, the actual tuning on the system is what is holding back, and the cars don't deliver at the level where they could. Even for me, it was a challenge from, let's say, 2014, when I really went serious with car audio.
Yeah.
Because in live sound engineering, we were using Smart, but over there, you don't deal with fractions of milliseconds.
Right. It's a totally different approach.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about these things. But of course, I had my knowledge from a different field, but it's still sound. And then when you start to do competition in car audio, you understand what the expectations are. Then, in order to tune a car to an accurate point where everything is pinpoint, staging is on point, that requires a whole different level of knowledge. And that even took me years to figure it out. I think the first year was 2018 when I cracked the code.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time when we went to Eurofinals as well. And before that, we did okay. The whole team UK was doing okay. We always had few trophies. But in 2018, something just happened when I don't even know how many trophies we brought home. Quite many.
I think that was when I first heard your car too.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah. You shared a little picture of that. Was that the time when we had the podcast?
No, we did the podcast at UK Finals.
Yeah, at the time, the Honda wasn't quite that accurate when it comes to like pure sound quality expectations. Of course, it always fun
I've
factor.
heard your evolution over the time.
Yeah.
Like the car has improved dramatically from the first time I heard it to the last time I heard it. And you've always had a great demo presentation, like you were saying. Like, I mean, the vehicle and your approach to demos in it is something that I think is a topic on its own. Because it's funny because like I never have really focused. I mean, like I said, it's always sounded fine, and it's definitely improved if you're listening to it from a critical standpoint. But when I've listened to your car, I've never found myself listening to it critically as much as just enjoying the experience, because it's what you present is a completely different experience than literally any other demo I've ever had in a car.
Yeah, and especially since then, I don't know, probably we haven't sat in the car together for quite a few years now. If you'd been here at the finals, if you've heard the car that we had with us, nobody forgot that demo. That's what I like to do. I want people to experience something that they never had before. I'm not going to play, Rebecca Pigeon and all those classics. Although I have those songs on my playlist, because of course some people want to experience that too. And I always play quality, well-recorded acoustical songs at the beginning, where people would say, "Oh, it's a classic sound quality demo, just one instrument and a singer," where it's easy to hear subtle details, space, stage depth. But then, we quickly shift into a bit more fun.
When you have a lot of visuals with the videos going and the car dark, and I mean, it's you have a great approach at that.
Just so people understand, when you say that the car is blacked out, so at the time when you got demos from me back in the day, we were doing not just sound quality but also multimedia. That's something that most people have no idea about. In Europe, in EMA, we have multimedia class, which is about sound quality as well as image. So we play videos as well. And of course, if you have amazing videos like live concert videos, then that takes people to a whole different place. I always say that the eyes, and everybody knows eyes are the strongest receptors we have. And then even just if you don't play video, but if you black out the windscreen, people will focus more on the sound, because they are not looking through the windscreen, looking at people walking or chatting or anything. They are not going to be distracted. But then if you put a screen in front of them and if they watch a video as well, suddenly even the most critical listeners are going to, just as you said, you're not listening to the system so critically, like, is left center really left center, or is that instrument, behind the drum or in front of it? You're not listening to the music like that anymore. Just like if you go to a live concert, you're not doing that.
Right.
Until spectral balance is right, the tonal character and the tonal accuracy is on point, then you can relax and just enjoy. Of course, the system has to be integrated and tuned well, so you don't have, I would just describe, baby problems.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot changed since I got a new demo car. I don't do that much multimedia with that still. I do some. Or like now here in the US, not many people actually got a demo from me with a video, because you kind of need a car for that. You have to have a car that's ideally designed for that, built for that. It can have a screen lining up with the holographic center image, so that that screen somehow has to be at the right place. You can't just have it midway up
right
on the dash. It has to be on the top of the dash.
That makes sense. And you this past weekend in Birmingham at finals, I guess you were demoing most of the weekend, right, on a car that you were involved in. What was some of the background on that and how you got involved there?
Yeah, this was a new experience, and I didn't even advertise it. I didn't make big fuss of it. So this only happened because I have many clients globally, because I have my Patreon channel as well, where I can give more, I can support people, and we have consultations with many of them. Many people know that I help competitors because they are the ones who go the extra mile, who want that extra madness, like Chris Pierce. Many people know him.
Right. Yep.
From the US side, just to name one. But I support many, many people, even on the West Coast. That was the reason why I was over there at the West Coast finals as well. And on this side, we had Ramsey, Ramsey Nichols, who is a now 61-year-old man. Sorry, young man.
Yeah.
And he built a monster system himself as his very first audio installation.
Wow.
And this is the best part. When even there are people who don't support me for what I do or don't agree with me, I can always just look at the other side that, hey, I have kids from the age of 23 who are doing crazy installation. Like Carson is one of them. He was also on one of Nick's video. Yeah, he was highly influenced by the content we share. When he was at SVR, did you see his car?
The Porsche?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because he was coming up, I told to him, hey, just come over. We can meet each other. You can see what the competition is about. And I managed to bring the car in. I'm like, no, we just put it in so people can see it. Some people may listen to it. And when he arrived, I was so happy to, come on, guys, let's check this one out.
Right.
And then even, I don't know his name, the install judge with the white gloves.
Gordon.
Yeah. So
Gordon.
He turned up. He was looking around the car. He started to go quite critical already. And then I told to him, I'm like, hey, just so you understand, what you are looking at now, this was built by a 23-year young kid.
Right.
Like, what? I'm like, Carson, come over. So we started to have a conversation, and he was so surprised, like, what? Mate, where did you learn all this fabrication? And Carson didn't even say anything. He just literally pointed at me, like him. And that's such a cool feeling. And on the other end of the spectrum, I have somebody in the UK who's 72-year-old and builds front sub in freezing cold on the street.
Wow.
So then I had Ramsey here, who was burned by a shop, as many people have been.
Yep.
And he was just like, Pete, it's not that. He didn't get a terrible install, but it was not impressive. And, he couldn't enjoy the system. And he said, hey, I don't want to waste more money. I'm going to try to do it myself with basic skills. We started to buy a few power tools. And we had to look at the system design in a way that he could do it himself. This is the point when it's going to be a bit difficult for you to imagine what car I'm talking about, because you haven't seen it yet, because he only competed a few rounds this season. And he only qualified, I think, in Mecca for the finals. The rest of the competition he did at last weekend was just the season opener, I think, in the other formats.
Okay.
But he has a 1993 Mercedes E300 Coupe.
Oh, wow.
Which stopped many people just simply because how beautiful the car is.
Yeah.
Considering it's a 31-year-old girl. We can call the car a girl. And he has a freeway front end with a front sub and a rear sub in the car with extra differential rear feel. That part is easy, but what he did, that's crazy. So, okay, cut it short, system. He has our AMTs, Mundorf AMTs on the pillar. I had to help with that, so I flew in earlier to Birmingham. And I had to install those in the garage of an Airbnb and trim the pillars on a dining table.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So that was fun. No power tools. I was burnt out because I did like 10.5 hours on Wednesday. Then Thursday we had to install it, which was a nightmare because we had crazy amount of system noise in the car for hell knows what reason. And we spent like 2 hours in the middle of the night instead of tuning. We had to fix issues because I'm like, hey, if we have this noise, we're not putting this car into the hole. And it was even crazier that nothing went to plan because he was supposed to finish the car. He couldn't find anybody who would have helped with the pillars. So I said, fine, I'm going to do it. I can find time for it. But he couldn't even bring the car to me himself because he couldn't find time. So actually, at the end, his 18-year young son drove the car to me. He wasn't even here. He turned up when everything was finished.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And yeah, he came Friday morning when he saw my update on Patreon that I shared that we had insane amount of problem solving. There's a few things that we just didn't understand. I have to give a shout out to Nick Apicella on this one because he arrived earlier. We went out for dinner and told to him I'm going back and I'm turning the system on to see if everything works. Then hopefully I can tune it in the night. And then he was with me when we figured out the floor noise problem. And It was like UFOs and alien speech coming through all the speakers.
Oh, no.
At the end, it was few RCAs. But
of course.
On your own, going back and forth between the front and the back and muting channels and checking things, what's affecting what, it would have been
Very
a nightmare.
difficult.
So even with Nick, it took us like 2 hours. And then the system then was sorted. But then I could only tune it Friday afternoon. And I literally finished the tuning at 6 o'clock. I had a shower and we put the car into the hole. And that was it. But when people saw what Ramsey did, I think that just might be more memorable for everybody than, I don't know, how many trophies people go home with or how much money people spend on the car. Because this car was built by, as I say, you know, like last year when he built the majority part of the system by a 60-year-old man without experience. He was lucky because he has factory mid-range location on the dash. So over there we have 4-inch mids. Mid-base was a big question because that car has like a foot space in the kicks. And most of us would say, oh, hell yeah, let's do it. Right? But we have experience. He doesn't have. And it was just obvious that I can't push him to do kick build for mid-base because someone might just do mistakes where they will regret their decision and they will hate me and the whole thing. So we were looking at alternatives and he surprised me because it wasn't even my idea first, if I remember correctly. It all happened last year. He scanned the floor with a phone. He figured out to find a 3D scanning app. I was surprised. He sent the data. He sent the data to somebody who was here at the final as well, competing, an installer. So the guy 3D printed the whole mounting frame, manifold, and literally Ramsey just had to bolt it onto the floor and just cut the hole out to make a true IB mid-base application done.
Oh, wow.
And he has 8-inch stereo integrity TM8s on the floor with laser cut protective 1/4-inch thick steel grills over it. He just put a carpet over it so people couldn't even see where the drivers are. And yeah, it's a bit crazy.
That's phenomenal. Yeah.
Then he did true IB at the back, because why not?
All right.
The car was asking for it, and he knows how I like systems, so I didn't have to really push him to do that.
Right.
So he has a 15-inch one audio sub in true IB at the back, beautifully executed. And then we also have a front sub, because in order to have great integration with the true IB sub at the back, many people say that, oh, true IB subs don't play high. Well, it's not just the application, it's mainly the location, a million miles back at the car, at the back of the car. So he has a 10-inch front sub in the footwell up front on the passenger side too.
Okay.
So pretty decent system, but with limited budget. We added it up, the whole equipment, all the speakers, all the amps, DSP. Now he has an Ultra Mark 1 from Helix, US Acoustics Lana amplifiers, if you know them.
Yep.
I didn't know them before. I didn't even check them. And I told him, like, you know what? I don't really hear any problem with the amps. Like, we have crazy headroom. Nothing seems to struggle or distort. Floor noise is low. And when he told me that, they were $695 each for a 6-channel amp. I'm like, what?
Yeah. And it's a big sucker too.
Yeah. But the whole system is $5,500 retail.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. So when people saw that the car was built by him, equipment was cheap, but then of course everybody was intrigued because I was there demoing the car. Probably people wouldn't have been so interested in the car. They would have walked by. But then when they figured out that, hey, this car is with Pete, that's when things just went crazy this weekend. Because I think I had over 40 people through the car.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you did a ton of demos.
And 7 judges. Some judges even came back. Yeah, it was mad. It was mad.
Very cool. When I first went over to Eurofinals in the UK, of course, I was inundated by people like, what's the cars like over there? What's the differences? Blah, blah, blah. And after a while, I was like, it's just is car audio there, or just different people, but still kind of the same thing, But is there any? You've had a lot more time here than I've had overseas, and you've obviously both cultures probably better than I do. But what would you say? I mean, have you noticed any contrast between what you're accustomed to in the UK or at Euros versus what you're seeing, here on the West Coast versus East Coast and whatever in the middle?
I think when it comes to differences, it's rather the organizations, not what's happening in Europe or in America. The overall competition expectation is the same, exactly the same. Emma seems to have the same expectations, that they like a really clean, on-point, accurate baseline. Anything that's a bit more, bloated, heavier, well-rounded, that's not a good thing for Emma, as I see, even here.
Right.
Even over there, we had to learn that Emma judges. That's why I go to so many international places, especially to Germany, because us competitors, we had to learn what they want.
Right.
And that's how you can be competitive. And people say that, you don't need different tunes. Well, I would say, yes, you do. Because there are differences what the competition formats require. So what we need for Emma is a very clean tune. I may only use that if the car is parked up, engine is off, everything is quiet, and I can really appreciate the finest quality. Then you get on the road, then you have road noise, and then you're like, where's the baseline, right?
Right, yep.
So then you have ISCA, you have MECA, you have MASQ, and what did I miss?
I think that's it.
Yeah, that's everybody that was there.
So you have different formats, and out of all those formats, I think ISCA and MASQ, just the way I experienced it, they have similar expectations. I think MECA is the only format where they appreciate systems where you have higher dynamic range capability and you can turn it up and the systems stay controlled, because they test the systems at higher levels, which is not necessarily a requirement in other formats, right?
Right. Yep, correct.
And in MECA, we did really well because of that.
Makes sense.
Of course, me and Ramsey, we went into this whole weekend at the finals like, hey, the most important thing is to keep him happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He wouldn't have done this whole thing if it wasn't me. And he experienced what the car is like a year ago when first he had a system in it that was performing really well. And I tuned it in Vegas when I was there. And then he wanted to improve things. And then, he heard the car for literally 2 songs before we put it into the hole. And over the whole weekend, he didn't have a single minute with me in the car, in his own car.
Because everybody else was in it.
Yeah. I could see that he was getting upset the second. He's like, Pete, when is my demo coming? Yep.
It's my car.
And even when people were walking into the other space where the final results were announced,
right,
everybody was going. I still had like 3-4 people standing there. Ramsey was like, come on, Pete, we gotta go. I looked at him, I'm like, no, you gotta go. Your name is on the sheets. You will be called out. See you later.
Right.
So
right.
I let him go. I'm like, when I finish, I'll pack up, I go. So I was, I think, there for like an extra 15 minutes to give demo to people, because everybody knows me. I'm always the last who leaves the competition scene.
Right.
Because I'm still demoing.
Right.
People who know me, usually team members, or if wife is there, or this time Ramsey, they have to look after me because I forget to go to the toilet. Also because I cannot. I have to show to people sometimes, hey, listen to these few songs until I jump out and I have a bite, and then I jump back and then I show you stuff. Because over there in Europe, this April at the Eurofinals, some people told to me that it's getting a bit upsetting. That, yes, some people say that, it's YouTube fame or whatever it is. But it's not fair that there are hundreds of amazing sounding cars, but instead of people wandering around and listening to these cars, other cars, they don't. They just stand there sometimes for 8 hours just so they can listen to our cars.
That's pretty impressive.
But then I have to explain to them that I think the only reason why people rather wait and they listen to Pssound systems is because after they watch hundreds of videos, they learn about installation, they learn about the acoustical properties of different locations and applications. They can tell that this all makes sense, especially the way I explain. Then they need validation.
Yeah. Well, and plus, after watching a lot of your videos and stuff like that, they kind of feel like they might know you already, even though you may have never met them. They feel kind of comfortable talking to you because they've heard you talk about it so many times and stuff like that.
Yeah, indeed. But they need validation. And then I learned that even literally 2 songs, 2 minutes twice means the word to them. And when I was a kid, I remember when I was like 15, 16-year-old and I went to first events where somebody had a car audio system, something that was more just a subwoofer booming in the back, but had a decent sound system. I was so excited. I wanted to hear it. And there are hundreds of people who haven't had the chance to hear a proper big system, even if at the competition scene we have dozens, but they don't know those guys.
Right, yeah.
And they feel shy to walk up to them. Sometimes I have to teach people how to walk around and how to behave on a competition. And I always encourage them to, just go there, introduce yourself, and just ask for a demo. They're not going to say no, except, okay, there are a few competitors who are like, oh, sorry, I haven't been judged yet.
Yeah.
I don't want to show it till then because who knows what happens to the system till then. Whereas they also know that we are the ones where if the show starts at 8 o'clock, at 8:15, I'm like, yeah, sure, sit in. And we are demoing, all my team members, all day. And what if the judge comes? Well, then we will tell you to get out and then judge will, get in. That's it.
Yeah.
And I don't care. I build systems which are not going to die during 10 hours of demoing.
Yeah, that's a pretty smart move. Because, at the end of the day, these people have to drive these cars around. And if it's not reliable enough for everyday use, then, it's probably no good.
We had a situation from this at the West Coast Finals that was not funny. And I got a bit of heat because of that. Reliability of a system, right? So I was asked to tune a car at the West Coast, a Tesla. I can share that much. With really high-end gear in it. And not that the car didn't have a good tune on it before, but I was asked, I knew the guy because he was my Patreon as well. And he knew that I was in LA. And we tuned the car before the finals. And in my opinion, that's an amazing sounding car considering that the speakers are not quite in optimal locations. Like mid-range in the Tesla, we know it's in the corner of the dash. That's a great location. But then the tweeter is a foot away from it in the sail panels.
Mm-hmm.
Then the mid bass is in the door. It's like, well, he was in an OE1 class, I think, something like that.
Right.
And for that, it was performing amazingly, even if people know I hate door applications. And during the day of the tuning session, we figured out that Tesla shuts down after half an hour. And then your first reaction is when the car shuts down that you just, oops, I turn it back on, right? The problem is that he had amplifiers which are sensitive. And if the powering off cycle has not been completed, but you turn the car back on, it gets a surge that, hey, no, you're not going to sleep, turn back on. The amplifier just says, no, I'm going to protect.
I'm not going back on.
No. And we struggle to figure out how we can sequence actually turning the amplifier back on. And we kind of figured it out, but it takes a couple of minutes. So when at the West Coast Finals, they had always 6 cars inside of the shop, out of sun, in the shade.
Right.
all the organizations were judging the cars flat out. So the cars were in there for, I don't know, Mike, how long? 3 hours?
A few hours each bunch,
So at some point, he got into trouble when his Twitter amplifier shut down during judging, and he didn't get the chance. There was no time for resolving the problem, so he got judged with no tweeters.
Ugh.
I heard it before the tweeter amp went down, but I know of 2 other judges that heard it without it.
I think only one score sheet reflected the problem, as much as I saw it, out of the 4 judges. And then, of course, few people came to me bashing me that, hey, Pete, I don't want to swear, but what on earth did you do?
Yeah.
What on earth did you do when this car was scoring amazingly whole season and this car should have won? And now he's going to place almost last because people are coming to me telling me that this car is scoring so low. And, I wasn't aware of the situation. The person who was bashing me wasn't aware of the situation. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Because, people say this sounds shit. I'm like, well, I don't know. All the people who came to listen to the car during those days outside of the shop, everybody was like, wow, how can it sound so good just considering the simplicity of the system?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was saying anything, not even like any critique. Everybody was just enjoying the system because it had so high-end qualities. And, I was a bit stunned. I didn't know what to do. I was caught a bit off guard. I'm like, I don't know. And then the results came. In Emma, he won the class with quite a few points ahead. And then, of course, in whatever other format it was where this happened, and he got like 30 points less from one of the judges because of this technical problem, he came 7 out of 8 or something like that. But then when we saw the results at the end, we could see that out of the 4 judges, 2 judges scored him first. The third judge, I think, scored somewhere midway. So still, out of those 3 averages, he still would have won. But then the last score, because of technical problem, just pulled him down all the way.
Right.
Yeah.
When you get 30 points less, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's impossible to make that up.
Well, it's such a frustrating point to be in too, because they're trying to help, and you think you did, and everything's going great, and then you're the one, because you touched it last, the one that's now responsible for the entire chain of events.
Yeah.
Well, okay, what has to be said as well, that the system was built by the owner. And when people saw the installation, they could see that it was a bit messy, considering how much gear he had in that car. And I even mentioned that, hey, this needs to be tidied up. And I saw this. On the day when we were tuning the system, we even blew the fuse on one of the amps.
Wow.
Because the amplifier had 60 amp fuse built into it, running the mid bass.
Right.
But he fused the cable at the distribution block at 30 amp.
Oops.
Oh, weird.
Well, at least I tested it,
So it works.
People know I test systems to the limit.
Right.
Some people hate me because of that. I push everything to the edge, and if something dies, then sorry, it's just not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a nightmare, because then I'm like, okay, so where's the fuse? And then he had to lift up the whole amp rack with 3 huge amplifiers and get underneath it to change the fuse. And that's when we saw, I'm like, why do you have 30 amp fuse on an 8 gauge cable that can be fused to like 100 amp? Why do you decrease the chance of the current to flow?
Right. Yeah.
And he learned a lesson. But that was just one thing that I saw there on site a few days before the finals when I tuned it. And if that was just one thing, how many more things
were hidden in the system?
And of course they blame you because you were the last who touched the system. But and that was a bit upsetting, because people looked at me with an attitude,
right.
And then I'm like, hey, what does it take to win a competition? Not just equipment, not just price tags, not just the tune, everything.
Yeah.
And yeah,
the durability of last.
That was a shit lesson.
Yeah. Obviously, you've you're not a stranger at all to competition in general. You've been to the Euros for years now, and obviously the shows in the UK and in Germany, and you're kind of all over the place there. And now that you've been consistently to more than a few shows in the US, including what should be the pinnacle of what we do here with the national finals, what would your feedback be at the event level that is tangibly there that we can be doing better from to serve the competitors and spectators better from what you see?
Spectators, well,
yeah, I know there's not many, but for those who are there,
yeah. So I think that might be one of the things that would really encourage people to come to the finals if they were spectators. It's easy for me to say that, what the organization should do better, but it's easy to say it. But to make it, I don't even know. I know it's a lot of effort to find a venue where you could have spectators. And I can only comment on what's happening in Europe, or especially at Euro finals. Cliff, you were over there. You saw that, this is not just a car audio event. It's part of a huge car event.
Right.
We are just a small part of it, but then that brings us thousands of people to the event.
Right.
Then for the organizers, it's also easy to promote the event to brands, car audio brands, to put a stand up and do an exhibition.
Right.
And that just makes the whole event, like I heard from competitors that it used to be the same here, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was 30 years ago, but yeah.
Yeah, back in the mid-90s.
Really? When was the last time? Really? Like 2000s, nothing?
I mean, you had the Nopi, some of the stuff with Nopi that had more crossover, but I feel like car audio was kind of still, I mean, Mike, you were a lot more involved in those days than I was, but
yeah, I went to most of those Snoopy National ones, and they did have some manufacturer support, but car audio was a small fraction of it because they had the whole thing inside Atlanta Motor Speedway, and the place was packed. I mean, there was thousands of cars, but most of them were like car show type cars, for racing and that type of thing.
Yeah, same at Euro finals. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, car audio was a small portion of that. But it did have some manufacturer support, so they had booths there from, Kicker and people like that, JL Audio and stuff. But it was still quite a bit smaller from a manufacturer car audio standpoint as compared to like the mid 90s, when they had, I would say, their highest participation from the manufacturers.
Yeah, at a competition level, I can't easily, early 2000s is the last time I can remember anything as far as on the scale of like Euro finals, where you have big booths set up and everything else from the manufacturers. Because most the people that are putting the money in there, most of that is going into like Knowledge Fest, or used to be CES, not even CES anymore, or MasterTech. Which we've been in talks of, trying to get some competition at like Knowledge Fest and stuff. But the problem is that most of the car audio retail market actively does not care about competition. And so like actively dislikes competition. So
yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I think that maybe Spring Break Nationals probably had the longest run where they still had manufacturer support,
But that's that side, yeah. But on the competitor side, I can mention a few things. I can relay a little feedback from few competitors, without mentioning names, that might help future events.
Okay,
especially at the finals, few people mentioned that they could really appreciate if the final presentation just had a bit more effort put into it, where it feels like, if you came to Euro finals, you know what it's like when there's music in the background,
right?
There's a stage or a little podium or something. And why I didn't like either, when, okay, I know they have to save time on the presentation, and that's why they don't call all the people out in a class. But at the same time, it creates a completely different environment when every single person from a class is called out and they get their sheets right there. So like, okay, the 16th place goes to this person.
Mm.
Okay, from that one point of view, it's better if they only call out the first three, because then the other people don't have to feel shit about coming last.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
That's one thing. But we deal with that every year final. It's just part of the game. Then those people will actually push harder the following year because they don't want to stand at the end of the queue and called out first. But then being on the stage with everybody else, it makes it feel different. And then also the first three places then are called out to stand in the middle, and then they get their placements there. Just the whole presentation then gets a different level of quality.
No, that's a great idea.
Some people mention that, when, hey, we pay so much money to come here and we travel days, some of them travel, 2 weeks. They have to take 2 weeks off to come here. And then at the end, it's just, hey, okay, this and this person, and off you go. And then that was it. It just doesn't have that.
There's no drama.
Also, at the American finals, sorry, I'm not going to call it World Finals, right? They in Salzburg, we have just not the full length of the national anthem of the person's nationality, but they played for like half a minute.
Right.
That changes the game when that person worked so hard, wins it,
right,
and then just gets that bit of a time for recognition.
Sure.
Here is just literally walking in front of that backdrop to take a picture, and then that's it. And then they walk off, and it's, they don't have a chance to be recognized.
There's no theater to it. Yeah. No, I hear you.
Yeah. So
that's a great point.
That's just what I heard. That could be improved, and I don't think that it's the case of financials.
Yeah.
Yes, it may take a bit longer. Also, that's one input from me is that it's good if people use a microphone. It's very annoying when people stand there and they don't hear shit.
Yeah. No,
Maybe because I used to deal with live sound engineering, but
right.
Even if somebody doesn't have a single microphone and a speaker, then at least speak up. Don't just mumble behind the table, because then competitors are upset. Like, what's the point to stand there?
Right. No, absolutely. Those are all great points.
Another thing that would be amazing, but I think that depends on the venues, because you don't have the venue open for long enough, but something could be organized, and Germans do that really well. So like in Germany, where let's say they don't have an indoor venue for the finals, like the last few years I went to, they still find a venue at the end where they have enough space, like a larger restaurant, and they have a larger room, like a function room or in a hotel, where they actually have the results, where they can have food as well as time for the competitors to stay together. So at the end of the event, people don't rush home. Okay, some people get the results and then they bugger off.
Right.
But then most people stay for the night.
Right.
And they travel home the following day. Then at least they have time together.
Yeah.
I think that's what's missing here, that competitors are only coming for the competition. Many of them I can see are only here to win.
Yeah.
But in order to build a community, I think it's more important when they can spend time together. But to be fair, that's why we have so much benefit in Salzburg, where that gathering happens not at the very end; it happens the night before.
Right. Right.
When we have the Euro part.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of like the old Mecca competitors banquet.
Exactly. You gave all the recognition on the Saturday night, and then when the competition was done Sunday, it was done. But yeah,
they would do all the club awards then and stuff like that.
But it's so amazing when people can get together, because like people were asking me even this morning, Pete, how do you feel? How are you? I'm like, I'm just exhausted. It's not, the competition is not about, even for you judges, you have no chance to breathe or chat to people. Like, sorry, I have to rush. I have to go to the next car.
Right.
This weekend, I talked to a few judges who I knew. I'm like, hey, I know you won't be able to come back to this car to listen to it. Other than, okay, they just judged it with their music. But Cliff knows I can demo certain songs that they will never experience.
Right.
Otherwise, I told them, if you finish, please open the door. I will jump straight in. Just give me 1 minute. I play you one drum solo. And some of them stayed, and I showed it to them, and they were like, fuck. Yeah, thank you. Because That's something I'm really missing from almost every single competition format. They don't have a recording that would have to be played at realistic live concert levels. Whether it's a full band or just a drum solo with a bass guitar or something like that. I have several tracks like that recorded in different ways, which can really help to differentiate systems.
Going back to kind of the demo thing, what we were saying as far as, grabbing people and being involved, participating to get to that point and everything else. And this is something that, we recorded earlier with Aaron Hardison. And we were kind of discussing with him, since he's so involved on the home audio side. We've got like this home audio show that we're doing with the Florida International home show in Florida. And then, Ayaska is also doing one with Expona in Chicago later on. And, we've had years of, for those of us who are more jaded, I guess, in the industry, we've had years of being at CES or, these different events and being surrounded in the home audio community, and then just, as soon as they see your 12 volt, they turn around and walk away. And so I think the concept here is to try to get some crossover, with the home audio people, as far as, I think the idea is, hey, they like sound, and hey, they have money, so potentially maybe we can get them to spend money on car audio, I think is the root of the goal. But my experience is usually they're not going to do that voluntarily, and some of that is going to be, I think, where we really kind of came to some agreement in our previous conversation, just to cut to that point, because I think this is where I think you can really give some value to the conversation, was, hey, instead of just sitting there in your car waiting for them to come, maybe you need to go into some of these home rooms and listen to their systems and spark up some conversation, and then work them back to the car. Of course, I think that takes some kind of planning in terms of how you're going to demo the car, how you're going to make that conversation happen, everything else. And, in that, and might be completely off base, I don't know. But I mean, if I've given enough premise to the conversation, if I haven't, let me know. But I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, an event like that, or any event, it's tricky to time people, because some people want to have a chat as well with you. You can't control how long a demo lasts.
Right.
That's a big problem, and most people don't want to wait and hang around. What I mentioned earlier, that in Salzburg, some people wait like 8 hours to just get 15-20 minutes in any of our cars, and who's going to do that? I can't put chairs down and, hey, take your place, and then...
I think in this case, there's a potential to have enough people ready to give demos. It's more of a matter of getting... I think the harder part, in my opinion, is going to be getting the people to want the demo in the first place. You know what I mean?
That needs marketing beforehand. If people expect magic, like right there on the event, if the audience is not prepared for it, they may not even notice that, oh, there were cars there.
Right.
So it needs very heavy, aggressive marketing. All those people who come to the event, they should know about it, that there will be amazing sounding cars, and they will know exactly what cars will be there. Just like when people get a leaflet and, hey, they will have 60 rooms, all these brands, and then this room is on floor 2, and then that room is on, floor 4. Mm-hmm. They know where to go. So equally, they should know, if they want to listen to the cars, they should have a list of, okay, these are the cars that we can listen to. They should have, I don't know, online it's easy. They could even click on it. Okay, this is the car, this is the install in few pictures, and that's the equipment in the car. I want to listen to it.
Right.
And then they could choose a time slot.
Yep.
Okay, now we are in 2024, next year 25. Have an app. Yep. Hey, you can book your 15-minute slot. Have a clock on the dash. Okay, you have 1 minute left. Get out. Next.
Right.
I guess, because I know what it's like. Sometimes I can't get people out of the car, and then it's upsetting because the other person outside is standing there.
Right.
And even yesterday, when the announcement already started, somebody got out of the car, Ramsey's car, opened the door, and he still didn't walk away. He squatted down, still looking at me. Pete, I just have a question.
Right.
And the other guys are standing there, and then he gets into the question, Pete, front sub. He just literally said this, and I went, yes. And he was just...
Join my Patreon, and we can...
Yeah. And I just said, yes. Whatever the question is, yes. And I'm, mate, they're going to stab you. Look at those people. Okay. Walk away. Literally. It's difficult to control them. I had another guy who was really chatty. And like, I think I was in Germany. Somebody was so chatty that I grabbed the hand of the guy and I looked into his eyes and I said, hey, if you want to talk, this is not the time. Then get out, because there are 10 people standing there. We can chat online. We can chat on the phone, in an email, whatever you want. This is the time to listen to the music. Would you like to listen to the music? And I was really aggressive at that point because I never had anything like that.
Right.
And I had to step up. Otherwise, you're wasting other people's chance to listen to it.
Right.
But that happens on regular friendly meetings also in UK. I ask people, I'm like, how many cars have you listened to? None yet. I'm like, well, we've been here for 5 hours. Why are you here?
Right.
It's just so nice to chat to people. You can chat to them online.
Yeah.
You know?
I hear you.
And I'm the headless chicken usually on friendly meetings. I'm running around and I look at him. I'm like, hey, grab that guy. Go. Sit in. Listen to the car. That's why you're here. You should learn from getting demos. You get inspiration. You get ideas. You can compare it to your own car. And then that moves things forward. If we want to chat, then I don't know. We can organize a friendly chat in a restaurant. We don't have to bring cars for that.
Right. No, that's a great point. And I think that's the added challenge, and this is something we discussed about before, where it's like, you know, even at car audio events where the people are already interested in car audio and already spending money on it and everything else, it's hard enough to get them to go listen to other people's cars or, you know, open their cars up for demo or make people invited to do that. I mean, I think that's where the spectator, even now, that's where kind of some of the disconnect is when you do have a spectator and then people are like, well, who's the crazy person walking around without a car? But, you know, it's like, it seems hard enough.
Yeah, with SQ, it's hard enough.
We've got to do a better job, obviously, of like what you said there. I think it adds dimension to what we're talking about here for sure, is doing the marketing side of it. And that was something that Aaron brought up too, is like a lot of people are coming into the event with a list of the brand's rooms who they're going to go listen to, and that's maybe all they have time to do while they're there. So I think what you're saying has a lot of merit there, where do the same thing with the cars, where people have, you know, a reason to listen to the cars.
You could even put signs out, you know, simple signs on the walls that, hey, arrow that way, cars.
Right.
And the simplest thing, even if you go to a wedding, where's the wedding?
Right.
And they put it out on the street, you know, and then you find it.
Right.
I always laugh at that. But it works. It works. Yeah. So it doesn't require anything complex. But to be fair, we struggle with it in UK as well. There are so many indoor events, and to put sound quality cars in there is tricky. I even had chat with few manufacturers who were complaining that they don't sell enough high-end sound quality equipment. And I told to them that, guys, hey, you are there at most of the indoor events. Why do you take only base cars?
Right.
Because I explained to them with a very simple analogy that you think that people only want to eat Big Mac.
Right.
If you only show them Big Mac, all they will pay for is Big Mac.
Yeah.
Because they don't know that there's a very nice filet mignon, you know, on the menu too. They would like to taste it.
Right.
And trust me, they will appreciate it. Because so many people spend tens of thousands of dollars, pounds on modifying their cars. But if they don't get the exposure to audio, how would they know what's possible and they should spend on it?
Well, and I think that's a big potential selling point here, obviously, is the fact that a lot of these people already know good sound, and they probably, many of them, just don't think that that's possible in a car. So being able to expose them to that is obviously a great move. It's just a matter of getting them there and then making sure that it's done well once they get there.
Yeah, tricky. I'm sure we can work on that globally, everywhere. Far East, I haven't been to an event yet, but as much as I see from pictures, they have so many competitors and so big events that they kind of don't even worry about the extra, you know, spectators. They just, we have enough. It's big enough.
All the competitors are the spectators, and they got plenty of people out there already. So yeah,
culture is also different. Like I was having a word with a few guys over there, and it was so sad to compare the situation, because if people win over there, at the end, when they go home and they say, hey, I became champion, for them, it's equal to the level of, I don't know, having a wedding.
Oh, wow.
The whole family comes together. Everybody celebrates. It's a big thing.
Wow.
That's why so many of them, when you see all these cheap people carriers and cheap Toyotas, and they are filled up with 50 or 100 grand level of equipment. And, you know, from the West, we can only question it, like, why? Like, what? Why would you do that? Because their vision is different, and as I mentioned, for them, winning is different. Right. Whereas when I won Eurofinals first, I went home. Unfortunately, no, at that time that Dad was still alive. After the first Euros, I only came 6th because I lost so many points on install. They screwed me up that I could have come 3rd. But my dad was still so happy that when he went to the doctor, he hid my printout of the result in his bag. And then when he walked to the doctor, look, my son came 6th at the Eurofinals.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, Dad, don't embarrass me, man. What are you doing? But
that's incredible.
But looking back at it, I'm like, hey, that man was so fucking proud.
Yeah.
His son was at the Eurofinals. It doesn't matter what placing I got out of 13 cars, I came 2nd, which was still okay. You know, I could have come 3rd, but yeah, I told to people, I prepare them when they come to Salzburg. Installation is a whole different story. They will pull their finger on the conduit of the power cable in the engine bay, and if it's dusty, -1. Yeah.
Look.
But then after that passed away, then I won Eurofinals. I went home. I told to Mum that, because she asked now, so how did it go? I'm like, well, yeah, I became champion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not lying. 5 seconds later, she starts talking about the garden. It's like, oh, yeah, the potato is not so nice. And I'm like, okay. Okay, so that's about it. So we don't have the culture where people could really support and appreciate other family members to do it. However, I feel more and more disconnected from competition when it's truly just about winning and winning.
Yeah, I agree.
It almost kills my soul.
Yep.
Like, really? Like, is it why so many people do it?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm all for coming prepared and doing the function, you know, that we're there to do at the best that you possibly can. But then you kind of gotta let it go and enjoy and learn from it, you know?
There's always drama everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And that makes it tiring. Okay, it's maybe it's easy to say for me or for even for Mike, because Mike, you have won a fair amount of competitions. After a while, then people can say, yeah, it's easy for you because you won so many times that you don't care much anymore. And other people still want to achieve that.
Right.
But I think we are helpful. We tell them what to do. That's the thing. We share a lot of information and, hey, just do what I did. Follow that. Do the right install. You don't know how to tune. There are people who can help and get you there. And that's it.
Yeah. Enjoy the whole process, you know, more so than winning and losing, you know. So I've been to a lot of different world finals, but I've been to every single one of them since 2012. And, you know, some capacity or another, I've competed at most of them. But the thing that I take away from it more than any of the trophies is I've met some of my very best friends through car audio competition. And it's one of the greatest things I've ever started doing, honestly.
We also have the saying over there in Europe that first maybe 2 years people go to the competition because they want to prove, they want to achieve something, they want to win. After that, you go to see friends already.
Yeah.
And then after many years, this is your time and your place where you meet all the crazies. They are all taking the same drug like you. They understand your language. You don't struggle sitting down with them talking about car audio, of course. And we had the same even in Europe. When I started to go to Germany, we were a bit shocked when we met somebody for the first time, let's say in Germany. The following time we were going back, they were fighting. No, come to me. Come a day before. Come to our house. You can sleep at our place and we go off for dinner. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, everywhere else, you know, in your normal life, people don't understand it, you know, and you don't have anyone to talk to about it. You know, they're like, you do what in a car?
Yeah.
You always We sit there with strangers and listen to music.
Then they criticize us and we pay them for it.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird thing, but it's so, there's a lot of emotional attachment that goes with it, you know? You get a great demo and you're blown away, you know?
My recent best moments are when people bring their wives.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point it started on our friendly meetings back at home where somebody brought his wife first. Okay. And then he literally made it clear in front of all of us, including his wife, that, hey, I brought her because I want her to understand why I want to spend time and money with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sure. So we put the wife into the car. We started listening to music. And she was like, screw that. No, I love it. I want it first. You can have your system later, telling to the husband. You know. That was so funny. But of course, as soon as they hear about the price, then, nah, I'd rather buy 2 pairs of high heels and a bag. But then they learn it.
I've met some people, and what's crazy is a lot of times their spouses will be even more competitive than the husbands, you know? So like Marsha, you know, she was way more competitive than Charles was, you know? And I think Cassie's kind of like that compared to Scott. You know, Scott's super laid back, and Cassie's a lot more competitive, you know?
We need more women, that's for sure.
Yeah.
To make it more colorful. But it's difficult to find. I don't know.
Yeah, it was great to see the Wallaces there as a whole family, you know? You know, Mick and Lori and their daughters, you know, all competing.
Their performance was something.
Yeah, their ESQL, you know, that was great.
I hope somebody recorded it and they will share it here and there.
Oh yeah, they've got a video that's been passed around, so that'll be cool. I haven't seen the video. I was standing off to the side and got to witness it firsthand, but I need to watch the video because I heard there was some break dancing, you know, in there too that I didn't really get to see from my position. So
it was really cool. I even stopped demoing. We pulled the window down. I'm like, okay, look at this. It was so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, they wanted to bring a bit of that taste from Eurofinals, I guess, over here as well. It's a good laugh. I did that in 2018. I made a fool out of myself.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the neatest, most refreshing parts of the event because we've never had that as part of the U.S. finals, you know. And I think it'll probably grow, you know, even larger in participation after this year.
Absolutely.
You know?
Somebody has to start it. That's all it takes.
That was pretty cool.
So when are we seeing each other again, huh?
I guess we got to come to Eurofinals now. I guess that's...
Oh, yeah. When is Eurofinals?
Actually, they announced the dates for the following many, many years. Usually it was end of March. Then in the last 2 years, it was mid-April. And then this is the first time when it will be mid-May.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think last year it was at the same time with Aggieland, mid-April.
Yes.
Which was a bit of conflict because many people go to that event. But Eurofinals will be now mid-May, which is good for weather.
Yeah.
And it might be better not having conflict with US events either.
Right.
I'll have to get me a passport and try to come over there.
Yeah, you will.
Easy. That's easy.
One thing that struck me going to Eurofinals in contrast to our events is it felt like what you were saying before, Peter, as far as people just going to win, you know, you're going to have that, obviously.
Yeah.
But it seemed like Eurofinals more than any other event I've been to had something for everybody. You know, it was one of those things where for the people who are going to party with their buddies, here you go. If you want the trophy and the recognition, here you go. You know, if you want to hang out and socialize, also here you go. If you want to learn, you know, you have the judges training, you know, the week during the event beforehand. And everybody has their different incentives for doing this. Over the past decade compared to previous decades, I feel like many more of the people now are coming in because they want to learn more about it. You know, they want to dig deeper into it. They're not here just, you know, 30 years ago, the majority of the economy of competition was to spur people to go spend money at shops to build a winning car.
Yeah.
It was here's the keys, here's the paycheck, and then I get the car and then I go win and yay me, But now there's so much more involvement. And I think, people like you, Peter, have been, instrumental in that, in the fact that you are providing a way for people to access the information in a holistic manner. Because so much information is pretty much just try to Google it or ask a buddy who gives you, even within the community, you ask 4 different people something and they're going to give you 4 different answers or maybe 7.
Yeah.
Getting that holistic information.
We try to help everybody. Doesn't always work out. It's even this weekend, there were several topics we were talking about, different stuff. And I told to people that, over the years, I got used to the fact that there are people who feel entitled, that they should get all the answers just on a plate. You give your little finger, they want to take your arm, and you end up in the situation, like the classic saying that, there are 2 glasses, one is pouring into the other one and it's not going mutually. And then one cup or one glass at some point is just going to become empty.
Right.
And usually that's my end. And the problem is the internet, that it gave now an opportunity to people to get information instantly. So they cannot appreciate the effort that somebody puts into sharing information anymore.
Right.
Because the other day, even Nick shared a video with somebody. I think Nick was talking about his own car. He shared on his channel. And somebody commented on his YouTube video. And he brought me out as well. And I don't know, it was one of those days when I finished installing Ramsey's car. I was sitting in the bathtub and I was reading the comments and I'm like, oh, okay, so talking about me. And in a really interesting way. And then I just couldn't resist not to answer. And I had to make it clear that, hey, you can bash me that I don't share so much stuff on YouTube anymore. And I don't share how to tune online because they think it's possible, right? Because so many other guys on YouTube share tuning related videos and Peter does not. Well, one, I shared a fair amount of content, and I have a feeling that everybody went crazy when we were sitting at home during COVID, and that was the time when I started to share RT evaluations on YouTube.
Right.
And I shared a fair amount, and then I saw a insane amount of increase in topics online, especially on Facebook, about, oh, what microphone do you use? How do you use it? What software do you use? Because they saw what I was using, a cheap Room EQ Wizard with a cheap mic, then, oh, I'm going to do that. If that's what Pete does, I'm going to do that. And then after that, everybody went like, oh, I'm the best shit, and I know everything. I know everything about tuning because it's so simple.
Right.
And now, 3 years later, I'm still not seeing progress. Just more and more.
In what way?
That the cars would be better.
Oh, yeah.
And those people who are so vocal about their tuning skills and using this and that, and it's just not happening. And more people get frustrated online because they think that everybody these days understands the game, but they try it themselves at home and they're not getting the results, and they get more and more frustrated. And they expect me as well to teach them online. And I'm like, hey, no. For me, it was many, many years in live sound engineering. Then I didn't have Google back in the day. I went to library. And do you know what that is? Right. I'm not that old, but because he felt so entitled to bash me and Nick as well, that, hey, you were told by somebody, so why cannot you teach others? I'm like, no, nobody told me. We had to figure it out.
What do you think the biggest thing that these people who are starting to learn how to tune is missing in their process?
So I can only comment on, let's say, what I'm experiencing through the trainings. Because now I had eight rounds over, I don't know, 30-something people. And even after I spent 2 days with them talking through system design, so they have to understand the expectations, what you get from different locations on different type of speakers, different aiming, different application. We spent over 25 hours speaking through system design and the process of tuning, every single step of it before we jump into the car. So even after so much brain training, first day when they get to tune the system themselves, I know, and I prepare them that, hey, you will make the most obvious basic mistakes, even after I spend so many hours with you. And they do all those mistakes. I give you an example. People go down the list verifying all the things they need to do at the beginning. And then most guys, oh, Pete, I'm trying to delay left and right speaker and I'm not seeing the result. Why? I'm like, hey, did you check step 3? And they have their shortlist right next to them in the car. So they look at it. Oh, shit, I didn't.
Yeah.
Literally just to verify polarity between left and right. And when I witness it, not over the internet, but I witness it in real life, and literally everybody does these, even these basic mistakes. How on earth can you teach somebody online thinking that he's not going to make these mistakes and he's going to get to the final result? It's literally impossible.
Right. Mike and I have had these discussions too, as far as at various levels we've all attempted to train people to tune, whether it's, on my end, like mostly dealers and stuff like that. And it's one of those things where it's you can't expect to go to a knowledge fest and go to an hour and a half class, and even if the basics are all thrown in front of you, it's no different to me. It's no different than a level of fitness, whether you're running or biking or whatever. Like, you can't do one run a year and go, ooh, look what I did. Like, you have to be in practice at it, and like you said, getting those the steps in the process, and then repeating it to the point where you have, it's just second nature. It's muscle memory versus constantly forgetting something that could be a very crucial thing, that when you get done, everything's going to be off because you forgot that
same
one
on
simple thing.
The tuning challenge, when now we had you, and most people don't realize that it's easy to say that, okay, this was the final result, and then that person didn't play so well. Well, it's a challenge, and it has a time frame. Within that time frame, it's so easy to make a mistake,
right?
And then you may realize it later down the line, and then you're, fuck, I have no time.
Yeah.
I have no time to go back, or you just improvise something quick just to pull something together acceptable, and then people don't see the struggle.
Well, and that's what makes it a challenge versus to reinforce what you're saying. Like, it's there as a challenge. It's not there to declare who's the best tuner, bar none, period. It's just what can you guys pull off in this restricted amount of time on this platform that you know nothing about?
Yeah, like a game of chess or something,
Yeah, but funnily, to some people, it comes out to, like, showing how big their D is. Because they really go in thinking, oh, I have to win it, because and then I'm going to prove it, and if I win it, then they will be the biggest D.
Right.
And that's bad. That's really bad. Because we know you can have advantage using that product, or you have a certain technique. Some people can tune way better if they have double the amount of time. Or, if everybody had that chance to, okay, let's spend 4 or 5 hours with the car, then we wouldn't have the excuse that the time was a limitation.
Right.
But we don't have that time on a single day event. And everybody who signs up to it, they are aware of it too.
Correct.
And it's fine when everybody understands this, except until a few people come in to show how big their D is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or the outsiders looking in, trying to say, oh, well, this guy did terrible. He must be a terrible tuner. It's like, no, it's not like that exactly, Crazy stuff happens while you're doing it.
Having said that, probably the recent years, since everybody understands that it's not that tuning cannot happen without measurements and measurement softwares and microphones, because some people can do it without. But those people who use measurement systems and they are well practiced and they deliver consistent results in their business or in the competition, we know that actually you don't need that much time to do something decent.
Right.
And like, perfect example that I wasn't able to demonstrate to anybody in Ramsey's car, even if I had the preset there. Oh, that was bloody crazy. So Ramsey tried to tune his system with the Helix RTA system, and it was so horrendous. It was so bad. Like Santa was coming out of the left speaker.
Oh my!
I was sitting on a passenger seat when we went out for dinner with his son, and I even touched the passenger side, the right mid-range, and I'm like, "Is this playing?" Because I'm hearing everything from the left, and I could feel the mid-range playing, but I didn't hear anything from it. So it was playing, but it was so off time and phase, and whoa, it was horrendous. And then just for Ramsey, when we had that big problem the day before putting the cars into the hole, the big system noise and everything, we sorted it, and I had a quick measurement that night just to see what the speakers do so I can prepare myself for the following day. And then when I saw the measurement, I put basic crossovers on the speakers. I grabbed, there you go, tuning tip. Guys, whoever is listening to this, I'm going to give you a good tip. So we are obviously delaying the speakers closer to us, right? So I grabbed all the driver's side speakers, beta, mid bass, put them in a group, if your DSP has a group, right? And I just delayed the whole driver's side speaker all the freeway. And we know you put like 1.2 millisecond on a 1.3, depending on how wide the car is. Poof, right. Everything is in the middle. After you also verify that left and right speakers have the correct polarity. Even if the speakers are not correctly timed, the pairs are not timed, maybe the pairs are out of phase as well, it's not a problem. But then everything roughly comes to the center, everything is playing, and with basic crossovers, I did a tune in 50 seconds. Nick was there. I'm like, there you go. Yeah, it's roughly there in the middle. Oh, good. Save. And that was preset 1 on the car. And I could have showed to people that, hey, Ramsey, as a DIYer, okay, he tried. But I have a feeling that that's exactly what's happening with all those people who struggle at home. They try to use all the online tools because there are so many videos. JL shared many videos. Helix shared many videos. But if people don't understand the absolute basics and the fundamentals, they're not sure where they made the mistake.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it could be done online.
Knowing what to expect sound-wise at the end, like what does it sound like if it's in phase versus out of phase? Maybe people don't have that experience and they just don't realize how it's
what is phase.
Yeah.
My voice is
even
in
just
phase.
reverse polarity.
My voice is out of
so you've got you tape measure time align and it's right, but one of your speakers accidentally got wired reverse polarity. So you're like, I set the delays right, but there's no center, So knowing what that's supposed to kind of sound like.
You know what? You're going to laugh your head off. The biggest marketing prank or whatever it was, or they were just so stupid, I'm not sure. This March, we went to the Bristol Hi-Fi show in UK, one of the biggest hi-fi shows we have. And I took Eddie as well with me. And I wanted to see what's happening these days because I've been out of home audio for a good while. I wanted to see if they introduce any new technology, especially to the amplifiers, or they have some active processing or whatever. First room we went into was demonstrating shock absorbers for speakers. And they had a beautiful setup where they used exactly the same floor standards with dual mid-bass, mid-range tweeter, three-way system, port at the front, large, like, 3.5 feet tall floor standards. And they even stagger the speakers so people cannot say that the speakers closer to the wall produce more bass and the ones further in produce less, for example. So they stagger them. And they had the shock absorbers under one set of speakers, and the other set of speakers were just standing on spikes on the floor in a hotel room.
Yeah.
And they were switching between the pairs with the display as well, showing that now these speakers play. Now those speakers play. And they were playing Daft Punk on like 85 dB when the speakers don't even play from a single watt. So no cone excursion, no real bass pressure. And when they switched between the speakers, the difference was so huge that I was like, fuck that. No, this is impossible.
Right, yeah. It's like they've rigged this,
And we were not sitting in the center of the speakers, so straight away, when you know what it might be, when they were playing one set of speakers on the spikes, they had a lot of bass. like the proper amount of bass, maybe a bit boomy as well. When they switched to the speakers with the shock absorbers underneath the spikes, it was so lean and thin. And I'm like, there's no way, zero chance. So I just moved my head right in the middle of those two speakers as they were staggered. And I was just laughing. I'm like,
completely out of phase.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody's sitting in the room, not realizing it. And I looked at the guy. I'm like, are you sure that those speakers are not wired with the wrong polarity between left and right? No.
Can I switch the polarity on that real quick? Because I think they'll sound like the other speakers when we're done.
And I even talked to the guy. I'm like, this is bullshit. And we just walked out. With Eddie. And I was thinking, no, I'm not going to be a dick to go to the main organizers that these guys are just fooling people. But the shittiest part of this was when we finished that day, we went to the hotel and my friends were in the bar. My car audio friend brought his home audio friends to this event. And we got introduced, and the guys had little boxes of products on the table. They purchased a few things. And then I saw that one of these guys bought those shock absorbers.
Oh no.
And I touched the product when we were walking into the room, even before hearing this rig. And the product looked good. I'm not denying that. But right. I just saw the product. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, how much did you spend on this thing? Like, I don't know, like $400.
Oh, jeez.
Because it's like, yeah, it was very noticeable difference. I'm like, oh no.
Well, it'll work really good as long as you wire your speakers out of phase when you do it. You'll be good.
It comes with new stickers for the back of one of your speakers.
Right. Yeah. Nice. Well, we've been on here for a while, and I'm sure we could be on plenty more, but it's getting later, and I know you got travels to do and everything else, and but we need to do this again sometime for sure. But any parting thoughts? Anything else we should you have maybe thought of during your travels here that we should know about?
Well, I think the best part of this, me being able to travel, is to meet all those people who follow me and the content. Like this weekend at the finals, I think I had quite a few people coming to the event just because of me, which happens the same way when I go to Italy, Germany, because they want to experience and get, as I mentioned earlier, they want to get the validation. All the videos that they watch, all the demo videos that they hear, they want to experience it in real life.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to share those moments with the guys. Like we had one of our guys from the Patreon, he traveled 7 hours on Saturday to come to the event, and he could only get to the event at around 5 o'clock, quite late.
Right.
He came just literally to listen to Ramsey's car. And then we were chatting, asking him, like, what are you doing tonight? Where are you staying? He was like, nah, well, I'm going back home. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I'm like, no. And then his phone was constantly ringing. His missus was calling him. And then I told him, like, just answer it. So she got on the phone. And then, I'm here with Peter. I came to Birmingham. I was like, what? Why didn't you tell me? I'm like, mate, you're a bad man. I'm like, what? I didn't want her to worry. I'm like, what do you think she would do?
Yeah, what do you think she's doing now?
Yeah. Wow. Fortunately, she wasn't one of those who hates me, because most wives or partners hate me.
Right. It's you.
Clients get my daily updates from the shop. And then, if they wake up to go to piss at 4 a.m., they start to watch the video. And then the wives wake up and, no, fuck that, it's Peter again, get out. They just hate my voice. But then this lady, like, oh, it's Peter, I recognize your voice. Okay. And yeah, sometimes I watch the videos and I even have questions to Tim about it. Oh, okay, that's cool. And we had a nice conversation, clear the situation, why he was supposed to go back home. It wasn't anything serious. So at that given moment in the car, I just said, you know what, if she's okay with it, then we try to find a way. You're going to stay here in our Airbnb. We have a big living room. You can sleep on the couch. You're not going anywhere. And then he was just so stunned by that little move, like somebody offered him to stay.
Right.
especially in our house, that he even broke down. And
Wow.
I told to him that, mate, people think that I'm a celebrity. That's what I'm called these days. But I'm just the same guy who was doing car audio in the garage at home. I'm just like anybody else. It's just, yes, I pursue the dream to do it for a living and do it every day. Wake up and go to the shop enjoying it, then travel the world and help people, DIYers, shop owners, whoever, to move the industry forward, and then share these moments. And then he stayed with us. He loved it. Following day, he stayed, I think, till like 4 p.m., even on Sunday. And then he listened to dozens of other cars.
That's pretty cool.
Well, and like anything, it's easy to, point at somebody, and the amount of work, like you said before, that goes into the projects that you've done, and then putting it out there and putting it in enough detail that people can learn from it and everything else. I mean, it's one of those things where you've affected more competitors and individuals who are in car audio in the United States than a lot of the very involved people who are here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
No, it's amazing, honestly, when I just walked through the hall and people just walk up to me like, thank you, Peter. That like, they don't even introduce themselves. They just shake my hand. Thank you, Peter, for everything. I'm like, wow.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
That's awesome, because I know that recently I caused a bit of drama as well, which taught me a lesson that even if I get to see things that I don't want to see in the competition field, because there's a lot of drama,
sure,
puts a lot of pressure on my shoulders as well to zip my mouth, and sometimes I cannot. and even if a few months ago I shared a few little videos on my private channel, well, it taught me the lesson that nothing is private until it's not just yours. As soon as you put something out,
right,
it may have the chance to spread. And even if it's a private video, it didn't reach far, but some people were affected by my opinion, even if it was, in my eyes, it was brutal honesty,
right,
for them, which could be used as, constructive feedback.
sure.
Not many people want that or need that.
Yeah.
And I was facing the situation when, I apologized. I didn't want to affect anybody's well-being or business or anything. And of course, I got the smack in my face, like, I've been doing it for longer than, you were still pissing in the sand. I'm like, okay. I deserved it. Honestly, I deserved it. And it could have been disastrous if I put it out on YouTube, but I'm not stupid. That's why I didn't put it out on YouTube.
Right.
But from that moment on now, I just learned that I don't care anymore.
Right.
I don't care. I've been to so many countries. I can see that there's drama everywhere.
Yep.
I just don't care. From now on, I just do what I do. I focus on those people who need help.
Yep.
And
who want it.
Yeah, there's a big, big generation that's coming even after we give this up. There's now a big generation, who started it in the 90s. They may only be around for 10 years.
Right. Yeah.
And then what's going to keep this industry going? What's going to keep the competition scene going? So I have to focus on those people who need help, who are younger, or even older generation people who have had no help from anybody. Like when I was down in Australia, that was the most shocking reality check.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't even know about it, because I never talked about these things online anywhere, not even on my YouTube, only on my Patreon channel. So only maybe a few hundred people know about the feedback. And when I went down there, I asked the guys who came to my training, I had 10 people on it, 7 of them were from shops. And I asked them, who was the last person who came to Australia to help you, to train you, to teach anything? And they said, well, it was Scott.
Yep. Yeah.
It was Scott from Hybrid.
15 plus years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay, so what happened on that training? I think they said it was like a 2-day event, seminar type, talking about system design.
Right.
Wow. And I could see the effect of that, because before we started doing the practical training, I listened to everybody's cars that they brought to the training to practice with. And the level was so low, so low.
Yeah.
When I have my own scale of categorizing cars from 1 to 10. 2 is factory. 3 3 is when you have an aftermarket system that can be turned up louder without distortion. So you still have many speakers amplified, but it still sounds poor. It can just get louder.
Right.
4, when you start to hear some spectral balance, that it starts to sound somewhat decent. You still don't have staging or anything. 5 is when you may have some integration, rough staging. 6 is when you have, okay, pretty nice staging, and so on and so on.
Right.
So one of the cars was not even hitting 2.
Oh no.
It would have been better from the factory, right?
When you debate if a tweeter plays or not. And I covered the tweeter on the pillar. They were looking so off-axis that you didn't even see the speakers on the pillar. They were facing the windscreen. You only saw the edge of the basket.
Right.
And I'm like, even if it's facing the windscreen, it should have high frequency. It's reflecting back from the windscreen. And I went there, I covered the tweeter, uncovered it. I'm like, it's playing, but hardly any detail coming out of it. And yeah, at that point, that was a bit shocking. But then we figured out why. Because they fitted a head unit last minute before they brought the car and didn't realize that the head unit came out of another car. And they had a low-pass filter at 5K on the system.
Oh, well, that will do it.
Yeah.
That
was crossed over.
Definitely makes you wonder if the tweeters are working. I can see why.
Yeah. We figured it out a bit late, the second practical day. And then, of course, when they found it, because at some point I just stopped them, like, there's no way that you push like 10 dB into the system above 8K and it's still not sizzling and sparkling and anything. Right. Even if I put my head next to the tweeter. Like, something is wrong here. It was focal flex tweeters. I'm like, hey, those can.
I should hear
sparkle.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when they found it, they turned the filter off. I could hear from distance, like, whoa.
They're back.
Like, yay. And it was first shocking to see the level, but it was even more amazing to see what we achieved in 3 days. Because at the time we only spent 3 days, but that's when we started it. Nobody knew how long time we need.
Right.
Every day till like midnight, 1 a.m.
Wow.
And those guys down there now, nobody sees what's happening, but it's crazy how much all those guys improved, how much better their businesses do. The customers are so much happier. Some of the guys who were just working out of a van, they had like a mobile audio 12-volt business. Now the guys are working on Mercedes Maybachs and whatnot.
That's awesome.
They get projects like that because they can show to the customers what they are capable of, even with cheap systems, that they sound amazing.
Right.
And that's why I'm doing it. That's why I try to come even here more often to the US, because we know shops need help.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and it needs to come from, I mean, there's so much room to grow here because, again, it affects the entire industry when you have so many people willing to sell gear, willing to take money, and then barely know how to put basic crossovers in a DSP, and they get done. Somebody spends thousands of dollars on a system and gets it installed and done, and it literally sounds worse than the factory. So
yeah,
it's like, how are you going to sell that to? They're not going to be proud to share that with their friends. Their friends are, even if they are, their friends are like, oh, it looks cool. It doesn't sound very good.
Yeah, but they won't be inspired to do it themselves as well. Yeah, that's what I always tell to everybody.
Yeah, so I mean, we definitely. I mean, it's awesome that you're doing that, and yeah, we need more of it because, like you said, even Scott being the last one in Australia, he didn't do a whole lot of hands-on stuff. Like you said, it was a couple days of mostly the theory training, and that's important, but it isn't everything. You need a lot of hands-on to really.
15 years ago, we didn't even have so good tools. These days,
right?
Like 15 years ago, we couldn't tune cars to this level, I would say.
I agree.
Or within an hour. That's the crazy thing. Like these days,
right.
We can have the DSP power and tools that we can do it. Down in Singapore, I made my own new record. After we had the first training day from 9 till midnight, and I told to the guys that, hey, if you want to go home, you can go home. I still have to tune one of the cars that we will use for the practical days, so I have to set a reference on it that you will have to get to match as close as possible, so we can have the A/B comparison at the end. 2 of them went to the hotel, 2 of them stayed. and they were sitting on the back seats overlooking what I'm doing, and I was explaining every single step, over talking every single button I pressed on the PC, except when I was measuring, then everybody was quiet. And we literally had start-stop on the watch. I was using Helix. Many people know that I prefer Helix for different reasons. And I did a freeway plus sub, fully tuned, not like 4 or 5 bands of EQ, well-populated, fully parametric EQ work, in average at least 15, 20 bands minimum, in average, probably on mid-range. Most people use the most. That was almost fully populated. And 53 minutes from start to the end. And I listened to 2 songs too.
Wow. That's pretty good.
That's moving pretty quick right there.
And yeah, but Mike knows as well. I use Helix a fair bit too. And if you know the software, you know the hotkeys and all the crazy stuff.
Yeah,
Right. You can shortcut.
Plus from EQ Wizard, then you can move quick.
Yeah. Tab takes you down, you know.
I tuned Chris's car at SVR on Friday, on the day when we put the car in an hour and a half, and 20 minutes of that was music.
Nice.
One thing. Do you still have brain power? Because I can give you very valuable lessons.
Go for it.
Those people who know that we do a lot of IB stuff, just a good recommendation to everybody. If you go to competition, double check the tune the following day, especially if the temperature changes.
Mm-hmm.
This was the biggest difference I've ever witnessed. Because at SVR, that venue is an ice rink, right?
Yep.
When we put the cars in, it was probably like 80, 85 that day. Following morning, everything was shut. Venue was cooled down to the point that we walked in and everybody was just shivering.
Right. Yep.
Which was amazing for competition because nobody is going to get sweaty in the cars. Judges won't struggle. Women were walking around in blankets.
Right.
But true IB speakers are highly, highly affected by temperature because the soft parts become a bit stiffer. They don't respond so sensitively, let alone speed of sound and everything else. And we had no problem with that car when it comes to bass linearity and having the right amount of bass. So the judging was rescheduled because, that was a time when you had this problem with the cyber attack, whatnot, airports.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And the order was rescheduled, and Chris was supposed to come in late because he was like, I'm not going to be judged till like lunchtime. So I went in the morning at like 7 o'clock with Luke because he was parked next to him. We went in. I started to make sure that his car is kind of ready for the audience. We can open it. It looks tidy, clean. So I started tidying up. And a judge turned up. Hey, hello. I came to judge Chris's car.
You're like, what?
Oh, shit. Do you know where he is? I'm like, I give him a call. I'll figure out where he is. And as I was ringing him, he was just approaching me and walking in. I'm like, okay, he came early, even if he said that he wouldn't bother to come early. And all right, okay, give us 1 minute. We get you ready, and then you can judge it. But we didn't have a chance to listen to the car in the morning. So judge came out, giving a bit of feedback, and he was like, yeah, it's lacking just a little bit of upper bass. That could be improved a little bit. And we were like, what? This car? Okay. I jumped in. People know. Probably have seen his BL like 210s in the kicks, 8-inch mid bass, 215s.
If it's lacking in that department, yeah, something's definitely wrong.
Yeah. And I jumped in the car. 1 minute, I get out. I'm like, Chris, he's right. It's lacking. Cliff knows as well. I always use the same song, No Ordinary Love.
Yeah.
Right.
I hate that song, but that's so good for me.
You know it.
Yeah.
To evaluate bass line because it has variable bass notes, well recorded. And I'm like, yeah, it's thin. It's a bit lacking. Shit. Okay. We had the data from the previous night when I tuned it. I remeasured it. And those drivers which are exposed in true IB configuration, the 10s and the 8s up front, so from like 45 hertz up to 180, that those 4 speakers cover, we had, in average, 3 dB sucked out from the system.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah. And, okay, at least Helix. Another reason why it's great, we didn't have to retune the whole car. I could just wipe the master EQ, remeasure it, re-EQ it, and we were back on track in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. Nice.
But I talked to Chris as well that from now on, okay, now you go to external shows, whether you're on concrete or on grass, whether it's 70 degree or it's 100, you will have to check the car every single time in the morning before judging, because True IB has this disadvantage. Or external noise. If you have big bass cars in the background, then your bottom end will be vanished, because then the subwoofers work like microphones and they actually pump the external bass into the cabin, canceling everything else out. Yeah, these are the things that many people don't talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
And even here at the finals, I tuned the car, finished at 6 p.m. on Friday. We put it in. This last Saturday morning, we went in. I listened to them like, where's the low end? And then Nick was walking up to me like, mate, do you feel like that the low end is measuring but you don't hear it? Like literally he was walking up to me within the same minute I was noticing it. I'm like, yeah, what the fuck is happening in this venue? It was so weird that I quickly pulled the mic out. I measured the system. It was measuring exactly the same like the night before.
Right.
But anything below 40 hertz was not really audible.
That's strange.
It was weird.
Yeah, that is strange. I haven't heard it as much in this building, but the old SVR venue was like it was like pressurized.
Yeah.
And it was, I know a lot of people had issues with that building going in and out because they're like, man,
how did that work out?
Yeah.
Well, in what way? How did that affect?
It just did wonky things to the tune. I mean, it was, especially with people doing infinite baffle drivers and where it was, there was pressurization between outside and inside the car. It was just a weird pressure inside the building that just changed. It just, I don't know. It just changed things.
Yeah, because the top of the building's kind of like a balloon,
Yeah.
It could have been something similar because we really noticed that maybe after the second half of the day, it didn't feel that weird anymore. It was strange, definitely strange.
Anything else?
One thing would be interesting. If I could hear from all those people who listen to Ramsey's car, maybe we see some feedback from those people, because the competition results didn't necessarily show the best scores, except in Mecca. Over there, they loved it. And all three judges scored like within, I think, 2 points. All of them, very close.
Yeah.
Very consistent. We screwed up Emma. First thing, he got judged right at the beginning. I literally walked away from the car for 10 minutes to the time I got back. I told him where I went. Like, Pete, I was already judged in Emma. I'm like, what? Yeah, I wasn't sure what preset, what. I'm like,
oh no.
Whoa. Because when we went into the morning, I was checking that problem with the bass. I was also checking different organizations' contents, and I had to create a different preset to overcome those problems.
Right.
And I left it there with slightly raised bass. And of course, on Emma, if the bass is a bit too much, not accurate and clean enough, that was straight away pulled out. Plus, we got 0 point for Santa for some reason. That was interesting because no other organization had problem with our staging. But in Emma, we lost a lot on staging because once center is off, everything else is off. In that case, nobody else found center off. Even I had other judges coming back later to get a demo from me on crazy music, like usually I do.
Right.
And everybody was like, whoa, center is like anchored and it's there. I'm like, yeah. But on Emma, we lost hell of a lot. But I told to him, it's in the cards.
Right.
It can happen. Because of that, I wouldn't start retuning anything because you go to different side, different time, different judge. If you get the same feedback 3 times back to back, then you can start to worry.
Yep. Agreed 100%. That's always been what I've said too. Like, never change anything based on one. Leave your stuff alone. And also, that's the other thing. It's like if you're, and that's why we went to like in the shows like Aggieland and SVR and stuff. That's why we went to judging as much as we could all together at the same time, because people have a tendency to change stuff based on what the last person told them. It's like, well, you're never going to get an accurate level of feedback if you're changing between every judge during the event.
True. Yeah, then it stops them giving them a chance to change things. But yeah, multi judging definitely helps too, because if
100%.
you have 3 judges, then two can still have big variation.
Yeah.
But out of 3, then if one of them finds something off, if the other 2 are different, then the average is still going to be okay.
Yep.
So yeah, we were not necessarily there to win or chase anything. It was rather more important for me to see all those guys who follow me to get a car that's built somewhat close to what we do or how we like,
Right.
or how I demo, because all those people who've been through the car, not to try to blow myself up, but yeah, their reactions were somewhat crazy. Even problem that I couldn't spend time with Mike in the car. So I couldn't spend time with so many people.
Yeah.
And even one judge told me that, Pete, everything you're doing is right. This system represents something that we used to do in the 90s, where instruments had larger size, real size.
Mm-hmm.
But I was even told that, hey, they may not like it because they're looking for Lego man size focus. Well, that's not what I do.
Right.
Right. And I don't think it's as much that way anymore, but I think Ayahuasca especially still is looking for a very separated, small, tight focus that tends to usually do better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Mecca is probably on the other end.
I can tune like that. I fully understand how to do that.
Absolutely.
But I was tuning this car for Ramsey and for realistic live concert expectations I have. Many people in the UK recognize my tunes because they can get in a car and they kind of forget how loud the system is because they just carry turning it up to the point where I even tuned the car here in the US not a long time ago. And after a month, the person blew up the passenger side speakers. When you have hundreds of watts behind mid and tweet, like insane amount of headroom, nothing shows distortion, everything sounds balanced, and then they just keep turning it up until the speakers don't like it.
Right.
And people recognize that my systems usually go to silly levels, and snare drums make your eyes blink. Somebody was commenting, Pete, my ears are, watering. Wow, it's amazing.
Okay. My ears are watering. I'm not sure if I've heard that one before.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, blinking is obvious, but like watering, I'm like, okay. I lifted the carpets up from the mid bass up front because it's in front of the seat. I lifted the carpet away from the front. So when I was showing to people that, look, we are playing these insane levels with dynamic music, and I'm just so you understand what I always teach and preach about, that you have to have solid speaker mounting because you have then zero loss of energy.
Right.
All the acoustical energy is getting to you. That's how you get that attack, hit, and punch, that feeling. And I'm like, look at the mid bass. It's moving 1 millimeter. Front sub is moving like 3-4 millimeter. And they just couldn't believe it. That gave them probably a bigger lesson on the finals than anything else. Like what people win, how big trophies. Because then they realized that, and it was crazy, honestly. Ramsey's car was putting people to a place that they never experienced. Plus, oh yeah, we showed our new tweeters. Placed for a bit of an ad. And yeah, they do something very different. Some people might have a chance to listen to it. I know it's not going to be for everybody. Even competitions are not necessarily looking for that level of transparency and detail. Some people appreciate it and love it. Some people are like, yeah, it's too much, just too much information. But like, yeah, 80% of the people left the car saying that, shit, these tweeters are different.
Interesting. What's the design on it? I haven't followed, I guess.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to put it out public yet because I've been traveling left, right, center in the last 2 months. And we have our version of Air Motion tweeters made by Mundorf.
Okay, yep. Nice.
Quite a few cars have been done with them, even here in the US. Some people even pointed it out after the latest meeting up at Luke's place on the East Coast. Like, many cars have EMTs. What's happening?
Right.
They present something different that I haven't come across with any car audio labeled tweeters that would do anything like that. Not even some of the most expensive soft dome tweeters.
Right.
None of them.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But that's why I was tied to Ramsey's car to make sure that his presets and settings were correct for the competitions.
Sure.
Because he's not an experienced competitor. Plus, when people heard that I was there, I think on Sunday for 4 hours, I couldn't even get out of the car. I just opened the door, next person jumped in.
Yeah. Yep.
And he was mad. I was also demonstrating to people differential rear feel.
Oh, it's got rear feel as well?
Yeah, which is not a requirement in competition.
Sure.
But for daily demoing, I was demoing without. I even tuned the system for Ramsey that he can turn the rear feel up to an extra 6-8 dB louder than what it should be. So then it's obvious to people. They can hear it. Oh, that's what it's doing. Okay.
Right.
And then I turn it off. Oh, yeah. I'm not hearing the room size that much anymore.
Right.
And then when we find the right level with the differential rear feel, then it's just, I don't know. Nobody has mentioned to me, or none of our clients we built systems for, that they didn't want it. Rather the opposite. Everybody says that, hey, we can't live without it.
Interesting.
You see?
With that tool of not just this is how the car sounds, but being able to show too much and not there at all. I mean, that's definitely a better method than not demonstrating that. So, I mean, I guess that definitely makes sense on why people are choosing it when they hear what they like there.
I even demonstrated to a few people, not to everybody because time was usually short for demos, but to some people I demonstrated the system without the rear sub.
Oh, yeah.
So they wanted to hear what the system is like just with the front sub, and everybody was freaked out. Of course, I play some crazy Psytrance, very dynamic, punchy bass, turn it up to eye-watering levels, and that's when they really get the information and the message that, okay, zero buzz, zero rattle, all the energy, all the punch that everybody wants. Everybody cries about it.
Right.
Okay, not everybody. We know a few competitors who don't like bass. That's it.
Well, that's because they've had too many judges tell them they have too much bass.
Some people have personal preference not to have much bass. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But on daily driving preset, everybody wants to feel music.
For sure, 100%. Yeah, I don't know of anybody who's gotten in car audio who wants less bass. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong.
Right.
I've had a car in Europe, one of the top scoring cars. I listened to it and I even told to the owner, I'm like, oh, this is a quite loud, sporty car on the road. I'm like, how can you enjoy it while you're driving? Because I could tell even from that short little demo on the competition content that the mid-bass drivers in the doors are flapping crazy. I could see because it has a shiny cone without mentioning brands or anything.
Right.
Shiny cone with a transparent grille. And I'm like, those speakers move quite a lot on low level too. I guess they're crossed low. Like, how do you enjoy music on the road? And he said, no, I just listen to podcasts.
So he's not even hearing it.
And that was like probably like 25 grand worth of equipment in it.
Wow.
To listen to podcasts. Well, that's pretty good. I mean, thanks, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not me. And that was the beauty in Ramsey's, that he had honestly $5,500 retail price of everything.
Right.
And he was ticking boxes that people never experienced. That's why on Sunday, when I guess some people started to spread the news, what the car is doing, then they were just flowing like a flood.
Right. That's cool. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the insight. I mean, I've been wanting to get you on here for a long time, and then it was like, well, hey, guess what? You're on our time now.
You see, unplanned. you see, it's unplanned, and it's just worked out.
Exactly.
Perfect.
No, it's been great. So we're going to have to do this again sometime in the next 10 years.
Are you guys planning to go to Aggieland?
I'll definitely be at Aggieland. Yeah. I think Mike is planning to be there.
Shall we do a tuning challenge there?
We shall. Absolutely.
Because I have a feeling I could plan it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to be there, absolutely.
Because I have a feeling I will have a training early April on the East Coast. And that's, when is it? Mid?
12th, 13th. Yeah. April 12th, 13th.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. I think I could put it on the map.
We will do it. 100%.
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate it. You have a safe travels back, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Brilliant.